SpaceX copies and has you the same. Thanks. We just had a brief pause in TDRS return due to vehicle geometry, but we have you back loud and clear.
Yeah, and the TDRS mentioned during this call is the tracking.
Copy that. And SpaceX,
right.
We had all four of us in our seats, and you are welcome back on board with cameras.
SpaceX copies. All four crew members are suited, and we are coming back on board with internal cameras. Can you also confirm good intercom checks between all four crew?
Affirm, good intercom checks, all four crew.
SpaceX copies all. Thank you. We will step into suit leak checks following the approach initiation.
Endeavour copies.
All right, so that interaction there was the crew or the ground ground controllers here or flight controllers rather, in Mission Control Hawthorne. Just checking in on the crew. There's going to be handovers between the tracking and data relay satellites. They're geosynchronous satellites that are way above where they are. That's about 23,000 miles above the Earth. Where they are is about just approximately coming up on 250 miles. But we were talking about some of the views and that we are enjoying. On the right, you can see the view from the International Space Station looking at the Crew Dragon capsule. On the left is the view from the Crew Dragon capsule looking at the International Space Station. So they both are able to see each other. They're not too far away. Just a couple of kilometers. The approach initiation burn is expected to come up here in about 6 minutes. So they're coming up on just about when the Dragon is 2.5 kilometers below the station and about 7 kilometers behind it. That's about where they are positioned. We had a question come in using the hashtag #LaunchAmerica about the view from the International Space Station side. That's the view that you see on the right. Yes, that is controlled from a person in Mission Control Houston. That flight control position is called Cronus. And there he is. That is the Cronus flight position. So that person is in control of the cameras and is trained and has actually autonomous control to control the cameras. They do not need permission from the flight director to say, hey, can I point the camera in this direction or the other direction? They can go ahead and they're trained to know how to lock it in. So yes, they do have to be trained to manually look at Dragon during its approach, and especially when it swings underneath it, it's going to be kind of hard to track. But then when it holds out in front, we should get some nice, steady, high-definition views of a Dragon. So yeah, let's soak in these views as the two spacecraft that are about to join with one another here at scheduled for 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. Now getting into the approach initiation phase, minutes away from the approach initiation burn, seeing each other from about 7 kilometers away.
And we did also hear a call out that the crew is in their suits already, and they're ready for the ground to come back into the cabin. So we might get some internal views here shortly, and they're getting ready for approach and docking here soon.
That's right. The approach initiation burn. That's a major burn coming up in about a little more than 5 minutes from now, scheduled for 12:31 a.m. Pacific time. That's approach initiation.
Dragon SpaceX, we are back on board with internal cameras.
We copy, you're on board with cameras.
There they are.
There is the crew back in their suits, in their seats. Looks like they're also harnessed in. They're essentially, their seat belts are a 5-point harness. And looks like they're all strapped in and ready for this approach to the International Space Station.
We'll get to enjoy these views periodically as the International Space Station and Crew Dragon fly over the Earth. These views provided by passes over ground stations that are taking the live feeds from the cameras on board station, delivering them past the ground stations and over to us here in Mission Control Hawthorne. The approach initiation burn is expected to last for 90 seconds, a minute and a half, and that is a major burn to take us into the approach ellipsoid, where a whole new set of flight rules has to take place. We'll have teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne as well as Mission Control Houston looking at the same procedures, the crew as well, on board Dragon, as well as the International Space Station. We should hear them communicating over the big loop that loops in the two flying spacecraft, being both the Crew Dragon and the International Space Station, as well as the two flight control teams in Houston and here in Hawthorne.
And you could see that the crew, again, is getting ready for this approach phase of the mission, and they're getting their hands back into their gloves. These suits are, the proportion of the suit is a single piece, so these gloves are a part of that upper portion of the suit. So you can see those almost like red tags that they're pulling on, and that's because that makes it a lot easier for them to zip those gloves on and create that seal for the suit.
We can periodically get a peek from behind the astronauts looking at their screen. If you notice the center screen, that is the trajectory. You can see them on a plane about 2.5 kilometers rather below the International Space Station, and that approach initiation burn is sort of a slope that'll bring them up to the R-bar of the International Space Station, the R-bar going directly through the space station from top to bottom, and essentially that R-bar meeting at that point directly below the International Space Station. That point will be about 400 meters, or about a half a mile, and that'll be the first waypoint after the approach initiation as Dragon makes its way to dock to the station. There are two more waypoints, waypoint 1 and waypoint 2. Waypoint 0 is 400 meters below the station on the R-bar.
And the crew is waiting for that approach initiation burn to begin.
We're expecting that in about 30 seconds from now.
And the crew is out in space, so they actually won't hear too much. They'll just kind of hear some clicks of those thrusters and pumps turning on and off.
Wow, an incredible view. This is from the International Space Station looking at the Dragon. Station and Dragon are flying over the Philippines right now, about to head over Australia in an orbital daytime.
That is a pretty cool view.
Again, we're standing by. All right, and we're hearing that that burn has started. The approach initiation burn using the service section Dracos. It's a 90-second burn. The Draco thrusters on Dragon have just started to fire for the approach initiation burn. Dragon is currently 2.5 kilometers below the station and about 7 kilometers behind it. Again, this burn will swing Dragon up until it's about 400 meters, or about a quarter mile, directly below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of 2 checkpoints around the station that requires a set of go, no-go poles with the different control teams. The first checkpoint is called the approach ellipsoid, or as you might hear, called the AE. It's an imaginary shape measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, essentially a large 3-dimensional oval. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside the approach ellipsoid, the capsule is configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. This means if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters, it would be at least 24 hours before its trajectory would move inside the approach ellipsoid.
And again, we are currently burning for that approach initiation burn. Should be ending here shortly. And Dragon does have the ability to perform a mid-course maneuver about halfway through the journey to waypoint 0 to ensure the Dragon is positioned right under the station, 400 meters below. You've got this really very cool view on your screen of Dragon with some daylight.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. The approach initiation is complete and nominal. As a reminder, you now have impulsive retreat recovery cue cards available for your review.
Number copies on the big loop.
That concludes the approach initiation burn.
That's right. So the cue cards that were referenced are just the next series of milestones. They're going to track the performance of the approach initiation burn on its way up to rendezvous with the International Space Station, of course, passing through a series of waypoints, but they are going to monitor the trajectory and have the option at various points during the approach to execute some abort maneuvers. So they'll be reviewing those to make sure they are prepared. Again, we have a nominal approach initiation burn. Burn for 90 seconds. Now that's the last major burn. The crew and the ground teams will have the option to perform a mid-course maneuver should it be needed. And that would be just to fine-tune the approach to make sure the Dragon is targeting a precise point 400 meters directly below the station.
Again, we have this really awesome view from the International Space Station looking at Dragon. You can see that it is currently with the background of daylight. This view just...
Dragon SpaceX for suit leak checks.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
All right, Megan. You are go to begin suit leak checks per procedure 4.011.
Copy, that's in work.
We just heard some communications that they will begin their suit leak checks for the crew on board. This is the same standard suit leak checks that they did when they were at the O&C building getting suited up for flight, as well as when they ingressed on Dragon initially. Again, they did doff their suits for the ride towards the International Space Station, but now they have donned their suits again. So because they have put these suits back on, they're doing another suit leak check to make sure that the suits are ready to go. Again, the suits are there in case of any cabin depressurization. So just making sure that everything is functioning properly prior to docking with the space station.
All right, we're tracking the Dragon now about 6.6 kilometers or about 4 miles away from the International Space Station. We are tracking an additional maneuver, a mid-course maneuver that would happen inside 22 minutes from now, expected at about 12:58 a.m. Pacific time.
SpaceX Endeavour on Dragon to ground. We are ready to initiate suit leak check.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go to command initiate suit leak check.
Copy, in work.
All right, so that's suit leak check coming up. That's going to be another major key event. Now that we're inside or about to enter into the approach ellipsoid, we are in joint operations. So the Dragon control teams here in Hawthorne are working with the flight controllers over in Mission Control Houston and need to follow a joint set of flight rules now that we're in a very dynamic period. Of the flight inside the approach ellipsoid or about to pass into it. That will be critical to have an extra safety precaution of suits pressurized, just in case of any event that there would be a cabin leak. The crew themselves will be protected from any leak should that occur. Now, once the Dragon rather is docked to the station and holding pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, we see the onboard caution for RGPS 3. There's no crew action required at this time.
We copy.
What you're seeing behind Dragon from this view is Australia. The Dragon and International Space Station on a southeasterly course heading towards the South Pacific Ocean. They're going to enter into an orbital nighttime here soon, so the views will get slightly darker through this first part of the approach phase, passing into the approach ellipsoid. Again, during this after the approach initiation burn, the crew themselves have their suits configured and are undergoing a leak check. We're expecting to wrap up that leak check in just a few seconds. And we should hear a status of the leak check from here in Hawthorne.
And it looks like we got some cabin views there on your left-hand screen. Again, we are able to provide these once Dragon does pass over a ground station. So it is a bit intermittent.
SpaceX Endeavour, we saw 4 good leak checks.
SpaceX copies and concurs for good suit leak checks.
We heard some confirmation that those suit leak checks are now complete and they all are functioning properly in preparation for this approach to the International Space Station. And again, we have that internal view of Crew Dragon. All 4 crew members are strapped into their seats. They are preparing for the final maneuvers to make their way to the International Space Station. And this is a view from the International Space Station looking at Dragon. As that dot in the center of the screen with the Earth in the background.
Very cool. We'll get to appreciate these views from the cameras on board the station, looking back at the Earth for just a little while longer. We're about to cross over the Terminator line. So the views you're seeing here will start to get just a little bit darker as we pass into an orbital nighttime over the South Pacific Ocean.
Again, if you're just now joining us, this is a live view inside of Crew Dragon. This is the Crew 2 mission.
Dragon SpaceX for RGPS caution.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
All right, we still have 5 converged filters for RGPS, and we only need 1, so we are not going to be troubleshooting at this time. Dragon is still go for approach. How copy?
Endeavour copies, no troubleshooting, still go for approach.
And we just heard some call-outs that they did have a caution notice, but it sounds like it is nothing to worry about, and they are still go for approach. Again, we have completed the approach initiation burn.
All right, you're hearing some chatter over Dragon to Ground about the RGPS. These GPS units use position data transmitted from the International Space Station to perform relative GPS navigation. There are 6 on board the Crew Dragon. Only 1 is needed for this phase of flight. So we're in a good position as we're in the approach and docking phase of Crew Dragon's eventual arrival to the forward port of the International Space Station. As promised, the views of Dragon starting to get darker as we enter into an orbital nighttime over the South Pacific Ocean. Getting good views from inside the cabin of Crew Dragon to see that center screen, monitoring the trajectory, just really following that line up to the big dot, the big center there. That is the International Space Station.
And again, Dragon is flying autonomously, so they are not manually flying Dragon. That is not what they're using the display panels for. They are just using those displays to monitor their progress along the way. Again, we are getting some intermittent views inside of Crew Dragon as we pass over ground stations. And as Gary mentioned, we no longer have that daylight view. So that background is now that black space, dark view.
Now we're expected to be in a sunrise as station makes its way through this approach phase of flight. It's planned to execute an approach initiation mid-course burn, and then teams will conduct a go-no-go to approach Waypoint 1, which is about 400 meters directly below the International Space Station. We should be expecting a sunrise about that time, but we'll be in an orbital nighttime until those next milestones. Contact and capture at 2:10 a.m. Pacific time is scheduled to occur just before an orbital sunset. On Dragon's approach, it's about 3,700 meters or 3.7 kilometers away from the International Space Station as it approaches inside 2.5 miles from the International Space Station.
And this portion of the mission is, even though they are very, very close to the station, it is some precise maneuvers, so they do want to move very slow and steady with multiple checkpoints along the way to ensure that the spacecraft is safe and the space station is safe as well. So we are taking our time here. So even though we do get closer and closer, it will still take just a little over an hour or so for the Crew Dragon to dock with the International Space Station.
Meanwhile, again, Crew Dragon is not the only spacecraft in flight right now. It's about to meet up with the International Space Station. We're hearing from the control teams over there that the International Space Station itself has maneuvered to its docking attitude. The station itself undergoing a series of procedures to make sure it is prepared as an orbiting complex to receive the Crew Dragon. This view from the Dragon itself.
And what an incredible view that is. You can really see the outline of the International Space Station. Really shows you how close they are getting to docking.
Absolutely. That view is from about 2 miles away as the Dragon makes its approach to station.
Now we're looking at Dragon from the International Space Station in this view that you're seeing here on your screen.
A common question we get relative to International Space Station cameras has to do with all the different colored pixels you see from this camera view. The pixels themselves have been exposed to the radiation environment that is in low Earth orbit. So cameras every once in a while will have dead pixels experienced from some of the radiation that is in this environment.
And you can see the camera kind of moving and adjusting as Dragon makes its way to the space station. And that is because it's being controlled by a human on the ground. That is in Mission Control Houston.
That's right, that position being Cronus. They're locked on to Crew Dragon Endeavour. All right, so we'll have intermittent dropouts from the cameras aboard the International Space Station. Of course, they're flying at 17,500 miles per hour, and they're using tracking and data relay satellites, geosynchronous satellites that are positioned about 23,000 miles away from the Earth. So they'll just have periodic handovers between some of the satellites as the two orbiting spacecraft make their way around the Earth. They're now over the Pacific Ocean in orbital nighttime. They're expected to be there for quite some time. We're coming up on a couple of milestones, one of them being a mid-course maneuver, just another small burn just to make sure we're in line, to make sure we're getting to that first waypoint. There are 3 waypoints, waypoints 0, 1, and 2, and waypoint 0 is 400 meters directly below the International Space Station.
Again, if you're just now joining us, we have completed the approach initiation burn. And as Gary mentioned, we are coming up on the next burn, being the mid-course burn, in about a little under 15 minutes or so.
Dragon's about 2.5 kilometers away from station now, just a little more than 1.5 miles.
If you're just now joining us, we are monitoring and providing updates on the Crew 2 as they make their way to the International Space Station. the view that you're seeing on your screen is of Mission Control Hawthorne. And as we get live views of Dragon, from Dragon as well as from the International Space Station as they pass over ground stations, we will provide those, but they will be intermittent, as you can see here. And there on your right-hand screen is Mission Control in Houston. So on your left-hand screen is Mission Control Hawthorne, where we are working the Crew Dragon, whereas Mission Control Houston is working the International Space Station.
Both control rooms looking over a similar set of flight rules. These are joint flight rules by both teams, both understanding what each spacecraft is doing to prepare for Crew Dragon's arrival.
And they currently are in integrated operation, so they are working together for these final maneuvers for Dragon to approach and dock to the International Space Station.
Dragon still making its way to meet up with the International Space Station. It's a little more than 1.25 miles away, or just more than 2 kilometers. We're tracking a mid-course burn coming up in approximately 3 minutes from now.
Again, if you're just now joining us, we have completed the approach initiation burn. We are coming up on a mid-course burn here shortly in just under 10 minutes. And then following that mid-course burn, we will be making our way to Waypoint 0, which is just a checkpoint. If we need to, we can pause Crew Dragon there until it's ready to make its way to Waypoint 1. But if everything looks good by the time it gets to Waypoint 0, it can just continue on without holding at Waypoint 0 and just continue on to Waypoint 1.
Dragon SpaceX for RGPS 3 caution.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
All right, we looked into the RGPS fault, and we are comfortable resetting this filter to try and bring it back to regain additional fault tolerance, but we are still go for the upcoming maneuver. How copy?
We copy all. Thanks for the update.
All right, so the team's on the ground going to try to recover one of these 6 RGPS units that provide relative navigation. They are redundant systems, but they're going to go ahead and try to recover it as we await the mid-course burn scheduled to come up here very shortly. The performance of that burn should set them up to determine its alignment with Waypoint 0, which is 400 meters or about a 1/4 mile directly below the International Space Station. And whether or not it will proceed past that point, which we've seen for the past couple of flights on Dragons. They've proceeded past the Waypoint 0 mark and swung up and out in front of the station to the 220-meter mark, which is designated as Waypoint 1. All right, we got confirmation that the mid-course maneuver has started. All right, we're about a minute into the mid-course maneuver.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Mid-course correction maneuver is complete and nominal. Trajectory has converged on waypoint 0.
Endeavour copies all. Good news.
All right, you just heard that confirmation from the core here in Mission Control Hawthorne. We just executed the 90-second mid-course maneuver, which again is done about halfway from our starting point of approach initiation to waypoint 0. It's a small burn just to fine-tune the approach, ensure we're targeting a precise point 400 meters directly below the station.
Once Dragon arrives at 400 meters below station, it will be at what is known as waypoint 0 and will be the first checkpoint during our approach. The vehicle can hold here at 400 meters, but if all systems check out, then it can just continue on to approach waypoint 1. So we are just waiting for confirmation once we get to waypoint 0.
Dragon SpaceX for our GPS caution.
Go ahead for our GPS.
All right, Megan, we had a successful convergence of the RGPS USOS filter. So we are back to having 6 converged filters. Still go for approach, and we are going to be clearing your onboard alert. How copy?
Endeavour copies all, but good news, thanks.
All right, that confirmation from the ground, the recovery procedures that they put forth to recover one of the 6 RGPS units was successful. Now they have 6 up and running, fully functional RGPS. That'll help with the relative navigation through this next phase of flight with a good mid-course maneuver that sets us up, and the Dragon itself has been confirmed converged onto waypoint 0, which is 400 meters below the International Space Station. All right, we're following along Dragon's trajectory, now completing both the approach initiation burn and a mid-course maneuver to get it in line with that first waypoint, waypoint 0. That's 400 meters directly below the International Space Station. We're looking to get confirmation that the station is passing inside the approach ellipsoid, now just a little more than a kilometer away and approaching fast. We should be able to get that call shortly. In addition, we're about 15 or so minutes away from arrival to waypoint 0. Should be conducting a go, no-go with both of the control teams that you see on your screen. The left is mission control teams in Hawthorne looking after the SpaceX Crew Dragon vehicle, and mission control Houston looking after the International Space Station, both, of course, looking after each other's vehicles and monitoring the approach through a set of joint procedures. So that go, no-go poll will ensure that Dragon is looking good to proceed with converging onto waypoint 0, and that the International Space Station is ready to receive Dragon as it makes its way through these next few milestones. Dragon's now less than a kilometer away from the International Space Station inside the approach ellipsoid.
We got the view from the International Space Station back, looking at Dragon as it's making its approach. And it is orbital nighttime, so the background is dark, but you can see that blinking light on the screen. That is Dragon in the distance.
The International Space Station is over the South Pacific Ocean still. It's on a northeasterly course and will pass over Panama, over Central America very soon, and then over the Caribbean. As it makes its way over the Atlantic Ocean, that's where the terminator line is, so we should start seeing views get a little bit brighter. Sunrise is expected in about 16 minutes from now.
Again, we're just now waiting. We're about under 10 minutes from the go, no-go to see if we can proceed.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground is go for approach 0, and we will be enabling the maneuver shortly. Expected maneuver start time is at 0819 UTC.
Copy 0819 for the maneuver.
Good readback. And Dragon will nominally continue approach through waypoint 1 towards waypoint 2 without stopping at waypoint 1.
Endeavour copies.
And we got that confirmation that Dragon will just continue through waypoint 1 and head on over to waypoint 2. No stopping there, so
That's good, and that means the ground teams both in Mission Control Hawthorne and Houston have pulled go to proceed with that. So Dragon itself will go through waypoint 0, 400 meters below, and when it swings up and out in front of the International Space Station at 220 meters, it will not pause. It's going to go ahead and head right in.
And Station Houston on the Big Loop. Expect to start monitoring Dragon in approximately 25 minutes.
Station copies. Standing by.
The voice you heard from the ground was from Mission Control in Houston. That's Capcom Kathy Bolt talking with Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station. It's his role today to monitor Dragon's approach. It's a busy day for the astronauts aboard, but he's scheduled to head over and start the monitoring procedures using the RPOP, or Rendezvous Proximity Operations Panel. It provides telemetry from the Crew Dragon as it makes its way, so he'll have another view. Of course, there's a lot of support from both of the control centers that you see here on your screen, monitoring as well. Victor Glover, though, will have the benefit of having a view for himself. We'll have a window and be able to look at Dragon's approach through the cupola window. We're about 10 minutes to waypoint 0. Dragon continuing its approach. The mid-course maneuver sets Dragon up to rendezvous with waypoint 0, which is 400 meters directly below the station. Dragon is now inside 600 meters, so 200 meters to go.
If you're just now joining us, and you're seeing on the screen this dark screen with a blinking light, this is a view from the International Space Station looking at Dragon as Dragon is getting closer and closer to the station. We'll be docking with the station in just about an hour, with our Crew 2 astronauts on board. Once we finish docking, there will be a process to ensure that both the station and Crew Dragon are safe, with opening the hatches before the crew can ingress. So crew ingress to the station will happen approximately 2 hours after docking is complete. Again, Dragon is getting very close to the station, but these are some precise maneuvers that it does need to make. Despite how close it is to the station, we want to make sure that we are checking in on both vehicles each step of the way to ensure the safety of both vehicles throughout this entire process prior to docking, prior to Crew Dragon docking with the space station.
The views of Dragon should get a little bit lighter, and we should be able to see Dragon clearly as it makes its way to, or crosses, rather, waypoint 0. What you're seeing now are the navigation lights on Dragon. The blinking is the navigation light you can see on the forward end of Dragon, exposed by the open nose cone. And you can see the green and red lights there. Green denoting the starboard side and red denoting the port side. So the view you're seeing is an upside down view. Again, Dragon is approaching from underneath the station and will swing up and out in front of it to align with the docking axis at the forward port of the International Space Station.
Now, when we say beneath, we're talking about basically between the Earth and the space station.
Right.
And when it swings up and out in front of the docking port, it will be adjacent to the station.
Dragon SpaceX for Dragon Eye status.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
All right, Megan, for awareness, we may lose Dragon Eye convergence prior to or during approach 0. If we were to lose Dragon Eye convergence prior to approach 0 starting, we would enter into go to 0. And if we lost Dragon Eye convergence during approach 0, we would temporarily transition to approach 0 coast. And then if this happened, it would result in onboard alerts. How copy?
We copy all.
The Dragon Eye system mentioned on board Crew Dragon is an optical navigation system that measures the vehicle's relative position for precision approach and docking. So the data we're seeing of Dragon's distance from the station and its rate of approach, partially coming from those Dragon Eye systems. The Corps mentioned a slew maneuver as Dragon approaches Waypoint 0. That's expected here in about 2.5 minutes. It'll help to align and converge with Waypoint 0 directly below the International Space Station.
All right. Wow, we've got a very close-up view of the International Space Station from Dragon. And you can see how close we're getting. Again, this is from below the station, meaning between Earth and the station. And now we have some internal views of Crew Dragon.
International Space Station is now 260 statute miles over Panama, close enough to pass over the ground stations over the Cape in Florida, providing some of these incredible views from Dragon.
The crew is in their suits and seats, patiently waiting as Crew Dragon approaches the International Space Station, which is what you're looking at on your screen. This is a view from Crew Dragon looking at the station.
You can see this is almost directly below the International Space Station. We're coming up on the R bar, or essentially directly below. That's waypoint 0, coming up in less than a minute and a half.
SpaceX for awareness, the geo filters did just converge on Dragon Eye, so we do not expect them to drop out.
That's great news, SpaceX. Thanks.
Crew continues to monitor Dragon's approach to waypoint 0, coming up in about a minute. The lights from the outside of the International Space Station illuminating the radiators. Those are those long rectangular shapes you're seeing coming down at the bottom of your screen. Almost directly below the International Space Station at waypoint 0, 30 seconds and counting.
And we did hear the Corps mention that they will not stop at waypoint 0, so they will just pass through this checkpoint.
Okay, and we have confirmation we just passed waypoint 0. The surface section Draco thrusters fired to converge with the approach maneuver to meet up with waypoint 1. That'll be directly in front of the International Space Station. So now we're making our way, now not officially behind the station, making our way in front of the station.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop. Approach 0 is in progress, and the trajectory has converged on waypoint 1. Expected arrival at waypoint 1 at 0845.
Zero 0845 at waypoint 1. Thanks.
And as expected, as we pass waypoint 1, we're starting to get some of the sun illuminating the station. Hopefully we'll still continue to get some of these views from the cabin and from the exterior of the Dragon, looking up at the International Space Station as we pass into an orbital sunrise over the Atlantic Ocean. Now 261 statute miles over the Caribbean. Again, we passed waypoint 0 and initiated an approach maneuver, approach 0, firing Dragon's service section Dracos to align and converge with waypoint 1 being directly in front of the International Space Station from this view. It's at the top of your view. That's where the International Docking Adapter is. You can sort of make it out now that the sun is illuminating the station itself. So that approach maneuver was successful, and Dragon itself converged onto waypoint 1. We did get a word from the ground teams here that the intent is to proceed past waypoint 1. So once it's directly 220 meters in front of the International Space Station, it will not pause. It will continue to move in. Inside the keep-out sphere, which is about 180 meters away from the station, and it will continue on to waypoint 2 at 20 meters. At 20 meters, it will pause and conduct a go, no-go poll to proceed past the waypoint 2 and in for a soft capture. Soft capture estimated less than 50 minutes from now at 2:10 a.m. Pacific time.
We have the sun shining very bright on the International Space Station right there. As we are entering sunrise, as Gary mentioned. Again, this is a view from Crew Dragon as it's approaching the International Space Station. And it is moving from below the station or between Earth and the station towards being adjacent or in front of the station.
So hopefully continue to get these views for as long as possible. They are absolutely incredible. And then, of course, we have cameras on the International Space Station itself that'll be able to look at Dragon as it approaches the docking axis a little closer. Actually, yeah, we're getting some views even now as the Dragon's underneath and in front of the station. So we're expecting to converge on Waypoint 1. Dragon, you're seeing from this view here, will make its way into the docking axis directly in front of the International Space Station. That whole maneuver expected to take about 21 minutes from now. And again, the plan will be to, as of now, will be to proceed past Waypoint 1 and pause at Waypoint 2 about 20 meters. So as Dragon makes this maneuver, you were seeing mostly the nadir side, or the side of the International Space Station that faces the Earth. Now, as we swing up in front of the station, you're starting to see more features, including some of the solar arrays, each of those arrays about the size of a basketball court. And those arrays will provide enough power for all of the equipment on board the International Space Station, including communications and navigation and environmental control and life support equipment, as well as hundreds of experiments throughout the orbiting laboratory. Once Dragon docks to the International Space Station, an umbilical will be provided by the space station to provide power from those solar arrays to Dragon throughout its 6-month stay aboard.
Gary, you're mentioning the size of some of the components on the space station, but the space station altogether, what we're looking at here is approximately the size of a football field, right?
That's right. Oh, fantastic views from the International Space Station. You can see very clearly the Terminator line. So that's the line between light and dark now. That's over the North Atlantic Ocean. The International Space Station on a northeasterly course. It will cross over Great Britain when it gets over the Atlantic Ocean, over the pond to Europe. It will first cross over Great Britain.
Again, more awesome views from the International Space Station, looking at Dragon with Earth in the background there. And Dragon is currently swinging up to become adjacent to the space station, and it will be moving to be right in front of the docking port.
Right, I just passed the marker Waypoint 0, that waypoint being directly below the International Space Station, where it executed an approach burn using the service section Dracos. That helped it to converge with that next waypoint right in front of the station. So now we're at a little more than 310 meters away from the station. As it makes its way up front, it will continue to get slightly closer. Waypoint 1 directly in front of the station is about 220 meters. So it'll get incrementally closer as it makes its way in front of the station.
and these views from the space station look incredible. I can only imagine what the astronauts on board the station get to see with their own eyes. That looks amazing.
They had a lot of time in orbit. Of course, after an orbital insertion, about 9 minutes into the flight, and then spacecraft separation from the Falcon 9 that delivered Dragon into orbit, 12 minutes into the flight. For the most part, up until this point, they've been flying around the Earth. Had a couple of laps, couple of sunrises, and have been able to enjoy these views. Of course, there's a sleep period as well.
And now you can kind of see how Dragon is swinging up to be in front of the station, because now you can see a portion of the space station in the view.
That's right, these cameras on the truss segment of the International Space Station, so these cameras likely on the nadir side of the truss segment. As station makes its way up, as Dragon makes its way up to align with the docking axis, we may lose some of the views here, but there are cameras on the forward end of the International Space Station. They'll be able to pick up Dragon as it makes its way to align with the docking axis. Those cameras pointed straight ahead to monitor the operations just like this for the approach and docking of visiting vehicles. Teams will continue to evaluate the progress of Dragon's approach, making sure that all systems are go for approach and docking. Right now, we're still tracking a docking time at 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. That'll be 40 minutes from now. And so this will be the last pass over daylight. So for the remainder of our coverage until docking, as long as we proceed through these steps nominally, we should be able to see everything in an orbital daytime.
And just as a reminder, after Dragon docks with the station, it will take a little over an hour and a half to 2 hours for the hatches to open and for crew to ingress onto the space station. And this is another cool view from the, I believe this is the forward side of the International Space Station.
That's right, and those cameras on the truss segment, on the port truss of the International Space Station, what you're seeing, the features there are the Japanese robotic arm and the Japanese logistics model sticking up at the top of the Japanese experiment module that houses many of the experiments on board the International Space Station from the Japanese side. There's also an exposed pallet there. There it is at the bottom of your screen with additional experiments. You can sort of see the Dragon out there in the distance, the cloud coverage over the North Atlantic Ocean as the Dragon makes its way up to the docking axis. Dragon's about 307 meters away from the station. The plan now is to proceed past Waypoint 1. Waypoint 1 being 220 meters directly in front of the International Space Station, right in line with the docking axis. When it starts to move in, it'll pass into the keep out sphere. This is an imaginary line extends about 180, 185 meters directly in front of the station. And there's new flight rules that come into play when Dragon makes its way inside the keep-out sphere. Victor Glover, who's monitoring from the station side, if he sees any anomaly with his data, has the ability to command an abort from the station side. But of course, an abort can be issued from inside Dragon as well, or from the ground. And of course, Dragon, once it reaches the docking axis, has about 20 hours of power, so it can hold there for quite some time and can reattempt to dock as necessary. But so far, things are looking pretty good for today, as we're tracking for a docking at 2:10 a.m. Pacific time.
And again, a really cool view from the International Space Station, looking at Dragon as it gets closer and closer. It's currently swinging up to be in front of the docking axis, which will mean that Dragon will be...
Dragon SpaceX for approach 1 status.
SpaceX.
All right, Shane, we are currently tracking the sun's relative position and how that is impacting our ability to monitor the retroreflectors with the Dragon eyes. We are going to make an assessment at approximately 110 meters to see if the sun's position will impact the Dragon eye convergence. If we deem that it might impact Dragon eye convergence, ground is going to command a hold. However, if at 110 meters, it is early enough where this will not be an issue, it will not impact approach 1, and Dragon will continue to waypoint 2.
Wake up at all. Thanks.
Okay, so what you just heard from there, first of all, down on the Earth, these beautiful shots. The International Space Station is just passing over Ireland. The body you see there is the United Kingdom. We're passing over Europe, and we're about to pass over the Netherlands and Germany as well. The calls you heard as we pass over these parts of Europe, the sun itself will come up and behind the International Space Station.
On the big loop, monitor approach per step 1 of 1.104. Crew Dragon approach and retreat monitoring.
Station copies and work.
All right, and that was Kathy Bolt, Capcom in Mission Control Houston. Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station, confirming he's standing by, monitoring Dragon's approach. So he'll be looking at the same telemetry that the ground teams are, and the crew aboard Dragon as well. Now, the call you heard from the core was once Dragon makes its way past waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Expect reconfiguration of the C2V2 return link shortly.
Endeavour copies.
All right, so once Dragon makes its way inside waypoint 1, the 220-meter mark, crosses into the keep-out sphere, the ground teams will do an assessment at about 110 meters. See the position of the sun. The sun might be a little bit too far behind the space station at the time and interfere with some of the optical cameras, the optical equipment, navigation equipment, the Dragon eyes. So they'll do an assessment and may issue a hold if necessary, depending on the position of the sun and how they're interfering or how they affect the Dragon eyes. Also, they're going to check the C2V2 common communication for visiting vehicles. There's a link between the two spacecraft now. There's a C2V2 on Dragon and also on the International Space Station that provides telemetry. A lot of that telemetry is what Victor Glover aboard the station is monitoring using his rendezvous proximity operations panel. So all this coming up very soon. Dragon inside 300 meters, 284 and closing. Again, 220 meters is the point where we meet up with Waypoint 1 directly in front of the International Space Station. That's expected to come up in a little less than 7 minutes. Still getting great views. Those cameras trained, of course, on the star of today's show, the Crew Dragon, but we're still getting some glimpses of the Earth right underneath the station, 265 statute miles directly over Frankfurt, Germany, passing over Eastern Europe, and eventually will cross over the Black Sea. $270 meters and closing. Crew Dragon expected to converge with Waypoint 1 directly in front of the International Space Station in less than 5 minutes. You can see the views right over the shoulders of Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan McArthur. Kimbrough on the left, McArthur on the right from that view.
From this view from the International Space Station, you can see what we were mentioning earlier, where Dragon was below the station. You could see that previously when it had Earth in the background. Now it is almost adjacent, or almost in the same orbit as the International Space Station, as it's making its way to the docking axis at Waypoint 1. Now this maneuver from below the station to in front of the docking port is almost complete, just a few minutes away.
Getting great views from all around, from the station side, from the Dragon side. The outline of the station you see on the displays inside Crew Dragon is in line with the position of where Dragon is relative to the International Space Station. It's almost at the docking axis, about 2.5 minutes to go until it converges with Waypoint 1.
And as a reminder, Dragon is flying autonomously, so they aren't using those display panels to fly Dragon. They're just using them to monitor each step of the way. So the crew crew is basically just patiently waiting until they dock with the station.
Now seeing Dragon in a better view, a lot more clear now that it's only 240 meters away. You can see the nose cone clearly deployed, extended towards the space-facing side or zenith side.
A really good zoomed-in view, and you could almost make out those 4 bulkhead thrusters on the forward portion of the Dragon capsule.
There you go. The Cronus is adjusting the aperture of the station cameras.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. Dragon will continue to a Waypoint 2 with the additional lighting assessment occurring at 110 meters as previously noted. For awareness, if sunlight results in the loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragon will autonomously retreat back to Waypoint 1, remaining on closed loop control using the time of flight filters. How copy?
We are in a handover period, so we may have missed a call as we were switching from TDRS satellites. We're looking at about 20 seconds to go until we converge with Waypoint 1. There's going to be an approach burn maneuver using the Draco thrusters. That's called Approach 1, and that'll move Dragon from right in front of the docking axis, 220 meters away, and start moving in, closing in to Waypoint 2, just 20 meters away from the docking axis. Of course, they'll be monitoring along the way.
We did hear the Corps mention that they are going to have a checkpoint to make sure that there isn't too much sunlight on the space station, which will prevent Dragon from docking. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously back out and wait until the sunlight has cleared to ensure a good docking with the space station. Because this is all autonomous, it uses some visual cameras to align with the docking port. So it's really important that we don't have that sunlight getting in the way.
Endeavour on the big loop, sound check.
SpaceX has you loud and clear on the big loop. How me?
Very loud and clear. Your last call, we copied most of it, but you cut out towards the end there. I'm not sure if there's anything important for us.
Copy. I'm going to repeat the end of the call. We did have a TDRS handover. Just for awareness, following the lighting assessment, if we continue but sunlight results in a loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragonite will autonomously retreat back to Waypoint 1, still on closed loop control using the time of flight filters. How copy?
Okay, we copied all. Thank you very much for repeating.
No problem, Shane. And for awareness, the C2V2 link reconfiguration has been completed.
Copy, C2V2 complete.
And there, the Corps just reiterated that they will be checking to make sure that the sunlight is not in the way of the visual systems between Dragon and the space station. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously retract and wait until we do get some good visual views for these systems to dock with each other. So
That's right. Crew Dragon resilience actually coming into view a little bit clearer now from the cameras aboard Dragon. Docked to the zenith port.
Yeah, that was on the upper portion of the screen.
That's right. Now, again, to reiterate, Dragon has passed Waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station, executed a burn maneuver to go ahead and move in. So we're in approach 1, and it's heading towards Waypoint 2. Now inside the keep-out sphere. It's currently in the process of extending its soft capture ring that'll be used to dock to the international docking adapter of the forward port. We're monitoring the visual systems of Dragon. It would execute an automatic retreat if the sun was interfering with the optical systems as it makes its way towards an approach. We're at about 150 meters away from the station.
And we have such a great camera view here. You can really see the detail on Dragon. Again, those 4 bulkhead thrusters. You could almost read the logo, the Dragon logo on the side of the vehicle.
That's right. We'll get even better views as it makes its way even closer to make contact and capture with the space station.
There it is.
Yeah, based on the trajectory here, we may even anticipate a capture a little bit earlier than anticipating. We were looking at about 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. It might be at maybe closer to 2:07 p.m. The features of the space station coming into view very clearly.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the detail there. And as you mentioned, the Crew 1 Dragon.
This is SpaceX station on the big loop. Procedure review complete, ready for docking.
Houston copies.
All right, that was confirmation from Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station. From the space station side, he is go for docking. The soft capture ring itself is fully extended. We're 115 meters in closing.
Looking at your screen, the port that we are going to be docking with is directly in the middle of the screen, that circular area on the International Space Station.
Station Houston on 2 for Ike regarding SSC 17 and D2DM. We are seeing some strange configurations on the video, and we would like to close and restart that. We can take care of that from the ground if you would like. Absolutely. If you're seeing nominal, that works for us.
Okay, so Victor Glover aboard the station
Copy,
still
we'll
has...
put that in work.
And Dragon, SpaceX soft capture ring extension is complete. Additionally, we did beat the sunlight for the Dragon Eye filters, so we are not going to command a hold.
Endeavour copies all.
All All right, so that's great news. We passed the 110-meter checkpoint that the ground operators were referencing, making sure the sun wasn't interfering with the optical sensors, the Dragon Eye, that are part of the guidance and navigation and control system aboard Dragon. We passed that check mark. We're good to go. We beat the sun there. So we're now inside 80 meters and closing. Dragon will pause at 20 meters. That's designated as Waypoint 2 to conduct a go, no-go poll for the readiness on both the Dragon side and the International Space Station side, making sure everyone is good for docking. If we are go, we expect to dock during this pass over an orbital daytime. Expected in less than 20 minutes. Some of the features there, you can see a lot of the visiting vehicles on board station. At the bottom is a Russian Soyuz vehicle that delivered crew to the International Space Station. Just in front of that, or actually above that, is the Crew Dragon Resilience docked to the Zenith port. Once Crew Dragon Endeavour arrives, there will be 2 Crew Dragons attached to the space station.
In this view from Crew Dragon looking at the International Space Station, it looks like it's this very slow and steady movement, but in reality, they're moving at 17,500 miles per hour.
The rendezvous operations are absolutely incredible. You can sort of see the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft as well, some of the Ultraflex solar arrays coming into view a little bit clearly.
And you could see that Crew 1 Dragon vehicle on the top of your screen. Once Crew 2 docks to the International Space Station, we will have 2 Crew Dragons docked at the same time for the first time.
That view right there was truly a representation truly of an international cooperation there. The U.S.-built Node 2 is where the Dragon will be docking today. It was flanked by the European Columbus module and the Japanese GEM.
Endeavour on the big loop, visors down.
SpaceX copies. Visors are down. We may enter into a hold at Waypoint 2. We are still awaiting ground go for final approach.
Endeavour copies.
The detail of this camera view is pretty incredible. Here from the International Space Station, watching Crew Dragon as it is slowly approaching.
And as expected, Dragon holding at Waypoint 2. It's at about 20 meters right in front of the docking axis.
And if you're just now joining us, we are just waiting for a confirmation for go for docking. currently holding Dragon at Waypoint 2. And again, it looks like Dragon is just paused and not even moving. But again, as we just mentioned, both the space station and Crew Dragon are actually moving at approximately 17,500 miles per hour. So it's pretty incredible how it can hold these speeds so that it looks like they are just completely paused.
That's right. Teams on the ground, both from the station side in Mission Control Houston and Mission Control Hawthorne, just checking and verifying all systems are go to proceed with docking.
And when we do begin docking, there will be two portions of this. There will be a soft capture followed by a hard capture. The soft capture will be a soft capture ring that basically just connects the Crew Dragon to the space station to enable the hard capture, which will be 12 hooks that will attach Dragon to the station.
Again, we're standing by the International Space Station, flying over the Indian Ocean now, just south of the Indian border. It's heading on a southeasterly course just south of Australia and should cross over the Terminator line into the Pacific Ocean into an orbital nighttime. The expectation is for Dragon to depart here from Waypoint 2 and proceed on with docking ahead of orbital nighttime to beat the sun.
You can see this camera moving around. Again, this is controlled from the ground from Mission Control Houston. And they're maneuvering this camera around so we can just get a more detailed view of the Crew 2 Dragon Endeavour patiently waiting, docking to the International Space Station.
Dragon on its second flight, about to dock to the forward end of the International Space Station for the second time.
And Station and Endeavour on the big loop. Ike, we are not able to recover that video for the D2DM, so you can close that window, and we should be ready to press into final approach shortly.
Station copies.
You did hear that call out speak out to Ike. Ike is actually referring to Victor Glover. That is just his nickname.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground is now go for final approach. Upon confirmation of crew readiness for final approach, we will enable the approach. Please confirm crew readiness, and a reminder, once Dragon is inside the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are no longer permitted.
Crew is ready for final approach.
And got some good words that the crew is ready for the docking to the International Space Station. They no longer will have control of any aborts If there is an abort needed, it will have to be done by the Dragon autonomously.
Houston on the big loop, monitor per steps 3 and 4 and 1.104.
Station copy.
Again, we are now moving into the CHOP, which is the crew hands-off point. As I was mentioning earlier, if there is an abort, it will need to be done autonomously by Dragon.
All right, and we did get confirmation. Approach 2 has been initiated. So Dragon now making its way inside the 20-meter hold point at about 18 meters and closing. Final approach of Endeavour to dock with the International Space Station has started. Docking expected in about 3.5 minutes from now.
And you can see on your screen as Crew Dragon slowly approaches towards that port for docking.
That's right, we're 13 meters and closing, making a slow and methodical approach to the docking port. That's on the forward end of the International Space Station, that international docking adapter where Crew Dragon Endeavour has docked once before.
Meters.
Copy, 10 meters.
And what that call out was Crew Dragon is just 10 meters away from the International Space Station as it continues its approach for docking. Again, docking will occur in 2 phases. There will be a soft capture followed by a hard capture. And what that hard capture means is 12 physical hooks will connect the Dragon to the space station.
Great views. Dragon just 6 meters away as the station and Dragon fly in tandem 263 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean in the background.
5 meters.
We're 5 meters and closing.
Copy, 5 meters.
Really start to see the detail on Dragon there as it is closing in on docking.
That's right, 2.5 meters, 30 seconds. Crew hands off point was called out.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture confirmed.
Copy, soft capture confirmed.
Great news with that call out. That soft capture is confirmed.
That's right. That soft capture time, 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern. The station and Dragon connected 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean. Endeavour connected to International Space Station for the second time.
And there are still a few steps to complete before Dragon is securely attached.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture ring retraction in progress.
That's good. The ring retraction is happening. Ring retraction happening as expected. And after the ring retracts, 12 hooks will latch, 6 at a time, to perform a hard capture, and will officially mate Dragon to the International Space Station.
Got this really awesome view of Dragon as it is connected to the port, currently making progress on hard capture.
Soft capture ring retraction does take some time. It is continuing at its anticipated speed. Things are looking good. Again, this is the first in a series of steps to officially mate Dragon to the station. If you're just joining us, we heard the call out for soft capture confirmed at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern time. Station and Dragon were 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean at the time of contact and capture. We're still in the process of retracting the soft capture ring and anticipating proceeding with the hard capture sequence, where 12 hooks will drive to officially mate Dragon with the International Space Station's International Docking Adapter at the forward port. Crew Dragon Endeavour docked to that forward port for the second time.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, ring retraction is complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
Endeavour copies all.
If you're just now joining us, as you can see on your screen, Crew Dragon has made contact with the International Space Station. And we're currently in progress of
Endeavour and station. MCS is configured. Proceeding with hook driving.
Endeavour copies.
Station copies.
great timing there. This is now the beginning of the hard capture sequence. This is where 12 hooks will latch between Dragon and the space station, 6 hooks at a time. This will take a few minutes to complete.
That's right, that MCS is just configuring the International Space Station's attitude control. It needed to be configured differently between a soft capture and hard capture sequence. So now that that's been confirmed, they can go ahead and press to drive the 12 hooks needed to confirm a hard capture. To reiterate, the Dragon had contact and capture with the space station at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. Space Station and Dragon crossing over the Terminator line, just south of Australia, about to head over the South Pacific Ocean. Start seeing the views of Dragon get a little bit dimmer as we still undergo the hard capture sequence. All right, again, we're still undergoing the hard capture sequence. There's 12 hooks that drive to officially mate Dragon to the International Space Station, 6 of them driving currently. Station attitude configured to support the hard capture sequence, now operating on control moment gyros to maintain attitude control during the hard capture sequence. All right, and we have confirmation the first set of hooks, all 6 have been driven. They look good. The second set are driving and are looking good at the anticipated speed. Halfway there.
This will take just a couple more minutes for hard capture to complete. As a reminder, after hard capture is complete, they do still have some more steps that they need to go through in order to ensure that the space station and Dragon are safe for crew ingress. There will be the hatch opening as the crew the crew on board Dragon as well as the station will be walking through some procedures prior to ingress of the crew on the International Space Station. But once they do ingress on the station, there will be a welcome ceremony.
Again, half of the hard capture hooks have been driven and locked into place. The second set of 6 hooks, 12 total, 6 of them driving.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop. Hard capture is complete. You are go to open visors.
Copy, hard capture complete. Opening visors.
All right. Crew Dragon Endeavour officially made it to the International Space Station. That dynamic period of the docking phase is complete. The crew inside Dragon have been wearing their suits just as an extra precaution, but they can go ahead and pull up their visors. It's going to be some time until the hatches themselves are open between Dragon and the International Space Station. Still some things to configure on that side. The vestibule on the International Docking Adapter that separates the hatches of Dragon and the International Space Station. That's been exposed to the vacuum of space and has had the sun shining on it periodically. So when repressurizing the vestibule to equal the pressure inside the space station.
Station, hard capture complete. Welcome to ISS. We are so excited to have you aboard.
Thanks, Shannon. We're glad to be here. We'll see you all in a few minutes.
International Space Station Commander Shannon Walker welcoming the crew. Now Crew 2 officially made it to the International Space Station. Again, it's going to be some time until they come in, but the commander of the International Space Station welcoming 4 new crew members for her expedition on board here shortly. All right, so again, there's a series of steps here as we enter into an orbital nighttime, completing the docking of Crew Dragon Endeavour to the International Space Station for a second time. That contact and capture occurring at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. We have a confirmed hard capture. The umbilical is in motion to connect the station to the Dragon and provide data and power and communication through that umbilical, so it no longer has to rely on its own systems. Everything's looking good for that vehicle. It's going to be some time again until we repressurize the vestibule and get those hatches open between the Dragon and the International Space Station. It'll be the crew inside the station getting that ready to be opened.
Endeavour, SpaceX, docking sequence is complete. Welcome to the ISS.
Thank you, SpaceX. Great to be here.
In some more official words, that docking is complete. The crew must be so excited to finally have arrived at the space station. Again, there is some more steps that they will need to complete and some checks before they can ingress on the space station. But the crew can now get out of their suits before moving into hatch operations. So now they can start to get comfortable again. They no longer need these suits now that they have arrived at the space station.
That's right. And so it'll be some time again until that area between the International Space Station and the hatches.
SpaceX Endeavour on Dragon to ground. Are you ready for us to begin seat doffing?
SpaceX copies. You are go to begin suit doffing and audio configuration. Procedure 4.012.
Copy, that's in work.
So again, it'll take some time. The crew will begin doffing or taking off their suits. It'll be some time to repressurize the vestibule. Station side, astronauts on the station side will configure the hatch, getting ready to open that up and welcome the crew inside the International Space Station. It was a pretty great docking. Everything happened right on cue and as expected. So it was a great to see Crew Dragon Endeavour dock to the International Space Station once again. We've enjoyed it from here in Mission Control Hawthorne, but to see how things turned out from the space station side of things as we work together to complete today's operation, let's go to Courtney Beasley for a refresher on what's ahead now that Dragon is docked.
SpaceX cameras are external.
Copy, thanks.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to see Dragon successfully docked to the International Space Station. Even through the face masks, you can see and feel the excitement in the room here in Mission Control Houston. Now that we're docked, Victor Glover is securing some hardware, and then he'll move right into hatch operations. First, he will open the large hatch at Node 2 forward, giving him access inside the pressurized mating adapter. Then he will have to pressurize the vestibule, which is the small space between the hatches on Dragon and the space station. This was exposed to vacuum prior to docking, and he will need to fill it with air and make sure its pressure is nearly equal with the atmospheric pressures on Dragon and the station. He will use a small valve on the station's hatch to slowly introduce air into the vestibule, and flight controllers here in Houston will monitor the pressure and temperature readings inside and verify that everything is leak-free before we get ready to open up the hatches. We expect it to take about 2 hours to get everything pressurized and checked out before we open hatches. With Dragon successfully docked to the International Space Station, that's the latest from here in Mission Control Houston. And back to the team over in Hawthorne.
All right, thanks, Courtney. As mentioned, it will take some time to go ahead and go through those procedures, but we'll stay with you throughout today's coverage. Of course, one of the major things will be repressurizing the vestibule in between the hatches. There's a hatch called the APAS hatch. That's the hatch on the International Space Station side. And then there's the Dragon hatch itself. In between is a vestibule that's currently at vacuum. So in order to travel through both hatches, you need to repressurize that. Now that there's a hard mate between the two vehicles, they'll check the seal. They'll do some leak checks as they're repressurizing the vestibule up to vacuum. And that will take some time.
SpaceX Endeavour, com check on the cabin mic.
SpaceX has you loud and clear on the cabin mic.
We have you the same thing.
You're hearing the crew inside Endeavour go through their procedures. One of the first things they're ready to do is take off those suits. They had to wear it through several of the operations of a launch from the Kennedy Space Center to a docking with the International Space Station. Launch is a very dynamic activity, so they had suits on up until orbital insertion, and then they were able to doff their suits, have a meal, go to bed, check out some of the systems, wake up, and then right before they entered into the approach phase of today's flight with the approach initiation burn, they got their suits on and were able to pressurize them, and they held pressure throughout that sequence of today's flight until docking. Now they get to take it off, they get to stretch out, change into something a little bit more comfortable, but not too comfortable, of course, because they will be we will have an event to welcome them on board the International Space Station. We expect all 11 crew members to be there to welcome them. It's going to be pretty crowded, but it should be very exciting to see that many people on board the International Space Station.
And those call-outs that we just heard they were doing a comm check with the Crew Dragon communications because they've now taken off their suits. They have comms through their suits, but since they're not going to be wearing their suits anymore, they need to use the comms through Dragon. So very exciting. It sounds like they're getting out of their suits as we speak, or doffing their suits. And then we will soon begin the process to open up those hatches so that the crew can finally ingress onto the space station. So it will take a little bit of time, but we will be here with you through every step of the way.